Hello there, kia ora, I'm Paul, and this is this week's The News. Finance Minister Nicola Willis, seen here pointing to the security guards that she's about to screw over, has proposed sweeping changes to procurement rules that government agencies must currently follow, which have been described by the CTU as heartless. These include no longer requiring new builds to have 5-star energy efficiency ratings, no longer purchasing batteries for hybrid and electrical vehicles, no longer purchasing low-waste or recyclable office products, and no longer paying the living wage to contractors involved in cleaning, catering, and security guard services. In a note written in oil on a whaleskin parchment that she handed to the press, Willis said, "Nothing says thank you to the people who do this work around Parliament than legally making it possible to pay them less than enough to live on. I mean, we could always raise the minimum wage to the living wage, but gotta give those landlords their tax breaks." Winston Peters, seen here pointing at the person who will be most harmed by his sundown ramblings if they became law, has denied his own party constitution includes diversity, equity, and inclusion clauses in its instructions on how list candidates are selected, after his recent yelling at cloud moments about diversity, equity, and inclusion in the public service. In the document, New Zealand First state the need for different genders, social groups, ages, and ethnicities to be represented in their list, which is totally different to the provision for public servants, which is to consider candidates' genders, social groups, ethnicities, and ages. Compass Group, the organisation behind the embattled and slightly melted school lunch fiasco, was this week forced to import school lunches from Australia in the latest embarrassing undertaking in David Seymour's revamped school lunch program. Seymour, seen here avoiding questions about his knowledge of Tim Jargo's sexual assault on minors, this week finally found time in his busy schedule to sit down with Education Minister Erica Stanford to discuss the issues, which have also this week included the first school to officially remove itself from the program over continued substandard offerings, financial failure of 2 subcontractors, including LaBelle Group, a new Talbot Mills poll which indicates 2/3 of New Zealanders want to bring back the old system, and a report that shows that 10% of school lunches haven't shown up on time for school lunch. Said Seymour, "We promised that the new system would still employ New Zealanders, and sure, it may not be ones living in the communities we forced to eat this slop, but with so many having migrated to Australia under this government, I'm sure that there are some Kiwis involved in the process of making the lunches that we imported." Local Government New Zealand has suggested in a new report this week the abolition of postal voting, citing its archaic nature, and instead replace it with voting booths and run election day more in the way of a general election. Said LGNZ Electoral Reform Group member Mayor Reheti Stoltz, engagement in local body elections is at historic lows, and it's dangerous for democracy to have so few people making decisions for the whole. People are clearly disengaged, so much so, most people didn't realise that this isn't actually Mayor Reheti Stoltz. This is. The reheated wealthy investor visa announced last month by the government, which would see wealthy foreigners be able to buy a New Zealand citizenship with a minimum $5 million investment into local business, as long as they also stayed in the country for at least 1 week a year, has seen a massive surge in interest from wealthy Americans, with a 230% increase in inquiries to Immigration New Zealand. Said the Prime Minister, seen here remembering he has a Marmite sandwich waiting for him in the office, "What I'm saying to you is this bodes really well, because American millionaires are historically very good people who make calm, reasoned choices and are never constantly looking at ways to improve the lives of everyone, while they never have plans to influence and undermine democracy and government." Police this week issued $2,250 fines to members of Brian Tamaki's Destiny Church and linked groups for blocking off State Highway 1 to protest against waving the wrong kind of flag. The illegal traffic blockage occurred in Mercer, or as the New Zealand Herald described it, Mercerin, so Tamaki could demand people only wave the New Zealand flag, because, free speech. Said Tamaki of the fines, "They're good for it. Do you see how much they give me? I'm sure they have plenty of money to spare." At the government's much-lauded Infrastructure Investment Summit, Chris Bishop this week, seen here trying to use the force, says we are finally ready to put a stake in the ground on a second harbour crossing, and is looking at international investment feedback on the project. He was quick to point out this was different from the 1996 Transit New Zealand suggested plans for a second bridge, the 2006 10-year Transit NZ plan for a tunnel, the 2007 Double Tunnel Plan, the 2008 Waitemata Harbour Crossing Study Group Plan, the 2009 Waka Kotahi Wynyard Quarter Plan, the 2007 Anzac Centenary Bridge Plan, the 2010 Stephen Joyce Plan, the 2011 Skypath Plan, and the 2023 Harbour Connections Plan, which were progressed to a point where Chris Luxon said he wanted to go further before he cancelled it when he became Prime Minister in 2023. Wellington Mayor Tory Whānau, seen here hunting for monsters dressed up in man-up shirts with Officer O'Leary from Wellington Paranormal, has responded to comments from Prime Minister Chris Luxon where he called the council lame-o in an insult that would upset the delicate balance of a schoolyard playground filled with 8-year-olds. Mayor Whānau pointed out that the government seems to be targeting Wellington City Council expressly after they didn't make the same comments regarding funding that was not applied for by Christchurch City Council, which led to the Prime Minister's lame-o comment. She noted that Wellington did not vote for him, to which the Prime Minister responded, "I'm not a doo-doo head, I'm going to tell my mummy on you." Winston Peters, seen here outside a place he wants to make sure has less tools for harm reduction, and New Zealand First are celebrating the removal of RSE guidelines from the Ministry of Education website this week. RSE, an expert-produced, peer-reviewed program based on decades of research, has been credited with helping decrease rates of teen pregnancy, STI infections, sexual assault and abuse, and promote a greater understanding of and acceptance of people's identities. Said Peters, "Yes, we did this, and we know it's a shock. It seems like the sort of stuff that the ACT Party presidents would want to have stopped, but we did it first, because our fan base are so indoctrinated that they would rather harm kids than learn what indoctrinated means." And finally this week, Parliament passed a law making it a crime for employers to steal workers' wages. The bill was supported by all opposition parties and New Zealand First, with ACT and National opposing. Labour's Phil Twyford, seen here showing how many votes he won Te Atatu by in 2023, said, "The self-styled Party of Law and Order is voting against a bill that would criminalise the intentional theft of money." While speaking on behalf of National, Katie Nimmin, seen here asking what those long cars are and why anybody would want them, argued that this bill would clog up the justice system, going on to say, "Look, our donors are the ones most impacted by this bill, and there must be a lot of it happening for us to actually believe it will clog up the justice system." Now, before I wrap up, I also want to say a huge thank you to everyone who supports the content that I make. Whether it's liking it or sharing it, or if you're supporting it financially as a YouTube member or a Substack paid subscriber, or helped out with the Buy Me a Coffee page. It all really helps to cover costs for the tools that I use to put it all together. And I know I don't say thank you often enough, so I wanted to make sure I made a point of saying thank you for all of the support in this week's video. Anyway, enough of those awful human emotions. That is this week's The News. Hey, thanks for checking out today's video. Make sure you like, share, subscribe so you get more updates as we go along. We deal with these guys for the rest of the year.